Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Aston Villa 3, Luton Town 1. It's the day after the dust has settled. How are you doing, mate?
I'm very good, thank you, man. I'm very good indeed. I just thought we could kick. I should mention this one, but I thought we'd kick off. Little word on Charlie Aitken.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we get into the game and everything like that, wanted to just kind of speak about this guy because our all-time appearance holder at 660 matches sadly passed away yesterday. A real club legend, man. Like, I've been looking into these statistics. The one that the club put out is just incredible. That he made 660 appearances for Villa and only 3 were as a substitute. 657 starts. It's really unlikely, to be honest with you, that record could stand the test of time. Our second highest appearance maker is Billy Walker at 529 appearances. So he's got a good 130 games on the next player in second. 16-year career with the Villa before he went over to play a year with the New York Cosmos. Actually played whilst Pele was there, which is quite interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah, what a life, what a man, what a career. It was a sad end to yesterday, but we got the win for him, and I believe our kind of fans are organising an unofficial 3rd minute, like we did with Graham Taylor. Everyone kind of gets their torches out and everything like that at the Alkmaar game, which will be our next home game. So that will be a very fitting tribute to probably this club's greatest ever number 3.
Absolutely. And it just the testament of his character as well. I've seen so many tweets of people who have either had personal interactions with him or known him, and I don't think I've seen a bad word. So, it's absolutely amazing. This is a guy who, our parents would have grown up idolising, and, it's not so long after to Bobby Charlton as well. I guess it's, our dads are probably sweating a little bit thinking, oh my God, our childhood's dwindling away. But obviously it's very tragic news, and I'm sure the club will do something on the Alkmaar game. I'm sure there will be something official. We'll probably do like a minute's applause, or so. I feel like when we did the Bobby Charlton one, they said a minute's silence, but we all just clapped for a minute. I'm not sure if I heard that incorrectly, but either way, obviously it was the sort of showing of respect. I'm sure we'll do something similar. And yeah, it's very sad news, but another whole tender in the sky. But I'm sure he would have been proud of the performance on the day, mate, because, well, I say performance, it felt pretty routine, really, this game, didn't it, mate? It never really felt like the game was sort of going away from us at any point. It felt as routine as wins come. There are understandably going to be frustrations with the goal that you concede. I think the only person that has the right to be annoyed, well, I think there's only 2 people that have the right to be annoyed about not getting a clean sheet, to be fair, and that's Ezri and Emi. They're the only 2 people who are allowed to have valid criticism about us not keeping a clean sheet. I think the rest of us need to just shut the fuck up, because it's really not that deep. But this is, as I say, it was routine, but this is now 12 home wins consecutively in the Premier League. We are very quietly just becoming an absolute monster of a team, and it feels like there's this grit and winning mentality that is really starting to get instilled in our players, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think we kind of saw that, didn't we, in the comeback against Zrinski, that real grit and determination that we've seen. These guys are really starting to build a bit of a backbone, and it's nice that, again, we kind of mentioned it in the last podcast, the journey that some of these players have been on. It's like they're finally seeing the reward for all of the hard work over the years, aren't they, mate?
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful watching this Villa team play, because we kind of went out there and look, like, Luton really didn't make a contest of it.
No.
It was quite an interesting, I understand that, the whole point of Emery's system is to bait a press and to draw opponents out and everything like that. But Luton was so happy to sit off the ball and allow us to kind of play. And there were moments where they showed a willingness to counter-attack and to get forward. But when defending, it was really quite standoffish. And it meant that our kind of midfield had a bit of a field day, to be honest with you. But this game is nothing but a banana skin, really, for Villa. It was only ever a game that could cause a slip up or anything like that. And whilst you and I were very quick to say in the preview that, you know, we need to respect all of our opponents, which is absolutely true. You can't ever take 3 points for granted in the Premier League. Everybody has an ability to shock you and to win games. We're all here for a reason. This was obviously a game where I dare say the vast majority of everybody at Villa Park on Sunday were expecting the 3 points. And it's not always as easy as that. And we made it look very routine. And I think that's the right word here, mate. I think this is the mark of a good team, though, in its own way, in that you are able to win games at maybe 60-70% capacity. You know, a few years ago, there was no such thing as a kind of walk in the park, really, for Villa. Everything was grit and grind, and you really had to fight for everything. And so the journey that we've been on it's only really in the past kind of, maybe not even 12 months, maybe the last sort of 6-8 months, that these games have become a very enjoyable spectacle. But that's a mark of how far Unai's come, and it's another lot of goals. It's another win. You look at the kind of record we now have at home in the Premier League. It's really quite remarkable, isn't it?
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy to think as well. And I think, if anything, like, we just have to be patient. And I think we've kind of shown that. You know, we've been able to go on this. I know we have beaten some very difficult teams in this run. And there will be sort of critics that say, you know, you've not played, you know, you've not beaten Liverpool, you've not beaten City, you've not beaten whoever. You know, you have to build a foundation. You can only beat what's in front of you. And the fact that we've got this sort of credit in the bank, if you like, when, you know, I think especially in December, we've got some really, really difficult games coming up, sort of back to back, haven't we, mate? I mean, I'm just pulling the fixtures up right now. So after this little run, obviously we've got in the league, we've got Forest away this week, then we've got Fulham at home, then it's Tottenham away. Home games after that, you've got City and Arsenal back to back. Then you've got the next home game after that is Sheffield United just before Christmas, with trips to Zrinski, Brentford, Bournemouth, and a home game against Leisure sprinkled somewhere in and amongst all of those. So, you know, like, feasibly, mate, we could be going into that Tottenham game, which is probably going to be the start of this difficult run, where we're potentially 13 games at home unbeaten, provided we win that Fulham game. So, and obviously that's then separated by an international break as well. So it'll be interesting to see how we come back. Obviously, Tottenham are flying in the league as well, but, like, you know, people are seriously starting to talk about Villa as top 4, top 5 disruptors, even people who could potentially hijack the title race. And this isn't me saying that we are a part of the title race whatsoever, but you've only got to look, mate, at how the Premier League is sort of laying currently. Obviously, City, they really needed that Derby Day win, just given how well Spurs have started. That between City and Arsenal, there's now 2 points between them two and Spurs, sorry. But over a run of what is 4 games in the Premier League, including Bournemouth away, we have a very real and legitimate chance to not only knock Tottenham off their perch, but to potentially pip Arsenal and Man City as well. So obviously there's a load of context surrounding that, but it's quite crazy that we find ourselves in this position potentially. You know, we are only 10 games in, but we're only talking about winning our next, 6 games, which again, we've shown that we can do that. Like, it's mad that we're even entertaining this conversation.
I'm really looking forward to those games as well. And I think that's the key point, is that I'm really looking forward to going up against a side like Spurs, because that has been the only sort of, you know, with these 12 home wins in a row, the teams are Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Forest, Newcastle, Fulham, Spurs, Brighton, Everton, Palace, Brighton again, West Ham and Luton. And so it's a run of games that obviously this is taking nothing away. It's an incredible achievement to win all of those games. It kind of going back to what I've just said about how difficult the Premier League is team to team, and there's no such thing as a kind of guaranteed 3 points in this league. We've only played one of the sort of so-called top 6 in that win against Spurs at which point, you know, they were kind of 7 or they were behind us in the league. So we're kind of yet to welcome a kind of top side. And I know that game against Spurs is away, but it'd be really interesting when Arsenal and City come to Villa Park, because that'll be a really, really good game of football above anything else. And I'm really excited to see kind of Villa test our mettle against that. And if we can get through these next couple of games against Forest and Fulham, no, not necessarily with 6 points, even if you kind of go through them with 4, kind of making sure that we're still in a really nice game of form with maybe a win in the Conference League in between that going into that Spurs game, because we got a great win there last season. We obviously did the double against them last season. But it's particularly when we welcome teams to Villa Park that I've got real confidence. And when we play against the top sides, it's kind of completely changed from a couple of years ago where it's like maybe you can snatch a plucky point or something like that. You know, we can legitimately say that we want to go toe-to-toe with these guys. We're one of only 4 teams in Europe to have won all 5 of our home league games up to this point. It's ourselves, Bayer Leverkusen, Liverpool and Atletico Madrid. And out of all of those other 3 teams, we have a superior goal difference to all of those. So in those games, we've got a plus 16 goal difference to Leverkusen's 12, and they score goals for fun. Liverpool was plus 12, and then Atletico are up 7. So what we're doing is not only impressive in an English context, it's impressive in a European one as well. And so, yeah, when Pep and Arteta and all those guys bring their teams to Villa Park, it'd be really interesting, because I don't think our style will waver. And kind of that's what makes games like the Luton one such brilliant kind of preparation for that, because as I said, it makes it raises the confidence, shows that we can score goals against any kind of opposition, any kind of defence, any kind of setup. And it's as impressive as any other result, really.
It is, mate. It is. Confidence is key. And that leads me on to the next point of discussion, Nicolo Zaniolo. And we won a game 3-1. We've played bloody good football, 12 wins in a row, all that stuff that we've just talked about. But some people still feel the need to pick holes, criticise, get on players' backs. I've seen people on Twitter who have been so anti-Leon Bailey for like the whole time for his Villa career. Go, Leon Bailey, he's so good. He should be playing instead of Zaniolo, this and that. And I cannot believe what I'm reading at times, mate. Just how there seems to be a need for a scapegoat. And one thing I would say with Zaniolo is, and which I've maintained the whole time, you know, you go back and listen to any of the podcasts since he's joined, I think he's a fantastic player. I don't necessarily think he's the fastest. I do think he's incredibly skillful, very powerful, offers the height that I do think we lack, and is a player that does in general excite me. However, hasn't hit the ground running. He's starting to look a lot more comfortable though, I will say. And I mean, he almost gets on the score sheet and almost gets himself an assist in this game as well. Obviously early on, Ollie Watkins tees him up. He has a little sort of volleyed effort, just goes just wide. He almost sets Ollie up again at the back post, I believe, as well in this game. Did a similar thing in the last game as well. And, you know, we've seen it so many times. Players don't just hit the ground running, right? Guys like Jude Bellingham, guys like Erling Haaland, who've gone to their clubs and just absolutely tore it up. They're freaks. They're like absolute freaks. It just doesn't happen like that. Even Diaby to a certain extent. Diaby we're talking about as, you know, I'm not saying world class, but like he's a very, very good footballer. And the fact he's been able to come to the league and hit the ground running is astounding. And especially with the context of this whole investigation with Nicolo as well, his head's clearly going to be in multiple places at any given time. I just feel like some of the criticism for Zaniolo is a little bit unfair, because I don't think he's played poorly by any means in any of the games that he's played in. I don't necessarily think he's set the world alight either, you know, just to be completely straight and honest. But I just find it weird how we've won 3-1 and a lot of the post-game narrative seems to be Zaniolo's not good enough, let's play Bailey. Because we just know, you just absolutely know, you start Leon Bailey for the next 3 games in a row, we're repeating the cycle. It's, why are we starting Leon Bailey? He's dreadful, he's this, he's that, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, it feels like there's a constant need for people to just slam players when there just doesn't necessarily, like, I don't see why we're criticising Zaniolo, to be perfectly honest with you.
I've been really impressed with him. I really like him. I got to say that, like Brian Howe, I think I pay the money. You've got to look at this in a kind of wider context, and there's been a couple of tweets on this which I think have been really nice and kind of really hit the nail on the head in that just think about where this like, I almost said kid, but like he's younger than me. He's 24 years old. So young in the kind of context of things. And he's the kind of career that he's had to point and the amount of stuff that he's had to deal with, kind of coming through it, at kind of Genoa, Fiorentina, like finally finding his feet at Roma, and then a series of pretty significant injuries. It was a really, really tumultuous end to his kind of career at Roma, and it was very emotional. It got really sour at the end, and he kind of wasn't finding his form. He was really struggling with injuries. He was getting some pretty rough treatment in Serie A. There was a mob that turned up his house at one point, and he was forced to like flee his house to go to La Spezia, to kind of really find safety, sort of thing. Ended up, out of all clubs, kind of at Galatasaray. Has never was there and played well, but was never a permanent home. It seems, because he kind of left within 12 months to then come to Villa on a loan, and then he's got here and he's had this whole scandal, the gambling thing that he's caught up in, and he looks like he's going to fall the right side of that in terms of avoiding a footballing ban, but there's going to be a fine. But he's seeing Fagioli and Tonali, like these guys that he was obviously clearly involved with in this kind of process, get pretty lengthy bans, and he's living in a new country and playing for a new club in a new league. I'm not sure what his English is like, and so much is going to be going on him on a mental space. And I think the fact that amidst all of that, he's managed to put in pretty good performances. And yes, I know the goals haven't been free flowing or anything like that, but on the whole, I completely agree, mate. I think his performances have been very good, and I think when you put it in the wider context, we kind of have to offer this kind of support. And if there's one thing that I've always admired Newcastle for as a club, is how they stick by their players, like no matter what. You look at how the kind of return to form of someone like Almiron and Joel Linton, I've spoken about them before on this podcast. Like Newcastle as a city, as a fan base, never gave up on those guys. Even when they look like complete duds, complete flops, they never gave up and have kind of willed them back into form for this team. And when you see the reception that they gave to Tonali when he walked off, and was the last game before his incoming ban, the way that the Gallagher end all stood up and gave him a standing ovation and cheered him off the pitch, they will not give up on Tonali. And I think we kind of need to, if there's one thing that we can learn from that fan base, it is that kind of approach that these are our guys, like we've got to stick with them. And Tonali's a perfect example. I think we need to kind of treat Zaniolo the same way, and that he's going to be going through kind of so much right now, and he had to fly to Italy as well before the game and come back to kind of answer questions on this kind of gambling scandal. And so with everything that's going on, you really got to just, the fact that he's managed, like he clearly have had conversations with Unai where he's like, nah, I'm good. I want to play. I want to be involved. And I'm really, really proud of him for doing that, man. Like it's a real testament to his character. The love to want to play is still there and everything like that. And I think he plays with confidence. And I think that's really remarkable, mate.
Yeah. And the thing with him as well, I feel like when he gets one, that's him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll go on a run. He just needs that one goal to go in, that one chance. And I saw someone said that he was like, someone described him as unpredictable, and I was like, no, I actually think he's quite predictable. I think he gets the ball, he turns, he goes wide left, he puts the ball in, but it works, and I am a big fan. I'm expecting plenty more. I don't like. There's no need to be hammering this guy. He's clearly going through a lot. Again, speaking of people who we've perhaps unfairly hammered, mate, Austin McPhee.
Yeah,
This guy is earning his money this year, mate. Let me tell you, that little set piece routine has lived in my head rent free, and it's something, again, like it's a little pet. Listen, like us regular mortal, football fans, whether you're a male or female, whoever you are, whatever you identify as, as much as we like to think we understand professional football, we just don't, right? So when someone like Austin McPhee comes in and we hear that he's this well-renowned set-piece coach, and it obviously takes us a while before we actually start seeing the fruits of that labour, and rightfully so, by the way, people do, it does annoy people. That's like, and it annoys me as well. But even like recently, like it's been clear, especially since Unai Emery's came in, it almost feels like Emery's given McPhee just this complete level of freedom to be like, listen, you're the expert in your field. I want you to get as inventive as possible. Because I think, especially since the turn of the year, these set pieces have got significantly more interesting and inventive. Some people in the stands are like, oh, it's like FIFA, and I'm like, no, it's not. Like, we don't know any of this kind of thing. And I just find it really interesting, and it's a great finish from McGinn as well. You have to give McGinn a lot of credit here. The way he sort of he sold the defense, loses 2 players, goes out, gets that shot away. Real conviction from McGinn. Someone who's just flying at the moment as well, mate, isn't he? He's in such a great vein of form, and I'm really happy for him. Happy for McPhee as well. Obviously, it's good to know that what he's doing is working. I think last season, like 28% of all the goals we scored in the league were from set pieces. So you can't say that it isn't working. They're not going to work every time, because if you were to take 100 shots in front of a goal, you'd probably only score 10. Like, that's just the law of averages, isn't it?
Yeah, no, Austin's a really interesting one, because he's someone that, at points his effect hasn't always been the most obvious. But you and I both said, like, it's no surprise that he's the one that keeps surviving these managerial changes. The whole back room will change, but Stevie kept Austin McPhee, and then Unai kept Austin McPhee, and he's also in the same position with Steve Clarke at Scotland. And so you can kind of maybe start to make a case that maybe this is the first time that he's kind of had the tools at his disposal that he needs to properly execute this in terms of the quality of player and everything like that. Maybe it's no coincidence that this season, with the confidence and the general level of ability really that we have within the squad, that this is the first time that we've really been able to execute kind of complex routines like that. I don't know. But yeah, it's really good to see those kind of play off, and they're always really fun. And Guinea takes it really well, man. I'm absolutely buzzing for him. But yeah, maybe it's fitting that he's the one to finish it off, given that he'll work with us in both at club and international level.
Yeah, I'm sure he's getting all sorts of insight. They must. I wonder if they travel up and down together from international. I wonder if they're carpooling to Scotland and back. I wonder. Obviously, Diaby gets his first goal at Villa Park as well. I think we spoke so many times over years about sort of crashing the box, having people alive to that situation. It's just instinctive for Diaby, isn't it? And it's a really good finish. Could have had 2 or maybe an assist with the own goal. I think I'm watching it right now. I think it maybe doesn't go in. So I think we've potentially denied Ollie a goal there. Well, I say we, Tom Lockyer has. But obviously they all count, don't they? They all count. Overall, it's just a really, really impressive result given the context. And we travel to Nottingham. It's not too far, and that will present a different challenge, won't it, mate?
Yes, it will. I'm really interested to kind of take this show back on the road in the Premier League and see how we stack up at a very difficult away game. Nottingham Forest have a very good record at home. There's a stat, I can't remember what it is exactly. I think since they got promoted back to the Premier League, there are only 3 or 4 teams that have actually gone and beaten them at home. It's like City, Arsenal, Liverpool, like it's the big dogs. And so it's a very difficult away ground to kind of go and get 3 points at. But they didn't look great in that loss at Anfield. And look, that isn't kind of where they're going to live and die this season. It's more kind of the games with other teams in the bottom half where they're really going to pick up the results that define their campaign. But it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. I don't think we'll walk there and kind of stroll over them. They've clearly shown that going forward, they've got some good players, and they're kind of just above that there's 4 points now between them and Bournemouth. And that's kind of the gap that separates them from, I think it's going to be those 4 teams, to be honest with you, Sheff, Burnley, Luton and Bournemouth, that battle out for relegation, and Forest and Everton. 4 points clear of that are probably already looking like they're safe. I know it's early to say, but 4 points for someone like Bournemouth or Luton or Burnley or something like that, they don't come around very often. Like, Burnley have got 4 out of 10 games, so it's not something that's easy to kind of turn around. And so it's going to be interesting kind of see what their season turns into, because you kind of get this towards the end of the season sometimes where teams in that gap from like 15th to 10th that aren't in the relegation battle have a few games at the end of the season where they're kind of not really playing for anything. But given the kind of the drop in standard from 16th to 17th, you could get that pretty early on this season, maybe by the time you're kind of just getting around Christmas. So that will be interesting. But yeah, it won't be an easy game, mate. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how we go there. But no, good to see Diaby score, man. I'm happy for him. It kind of feels that he's scored more than he has, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like they only said that that's his first goal at Villa Park, and I was like, wait, what? No, surely? I think he's had one in the net that's offside, but that's his third goal in the Premier this season, and it definitely feels like he's gotten more. I don't know if it's because like one came on the opening day, but no, happy for him, man. Happy for him to get that first goal at Villa Park, and that little two-man game with Ollie Watkins looks better by the day.
What a duo, mate. What a duo. They're only going to score more. But guys, we'll be back on Spotify and Apple to preview the Nottingham Forest game. So we'll go into that in a bit more detail. And there will be shorts and shorter videos on YouTube in the build-up to that. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe. If you listen on Apple or Spotify, leave a review, follow, share, all that good stuff. It helps Dan and I more than you could imagine. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.